Hello everyone. So today we will continue looking at MSF console. Now I have started a Windows 7 VM just to show you about Metasploit. Since we are not concerned about what we are really hacking into, so it makes sense that I use the target which is very easy to hack and where we can get an administrator account very easily and we don't have to worry about doing a lot of things. This will enable us to concentrate on the tool rather than the target and anything of that sort, right? So now, so far we have already seen how to install Metasploit, what is Metasploit used for, how to start it, how to set up the DB so that the searches are faster, and the basic usage of MSF console, how to start MSF console, and so on and so forth. Now, since I have set up Windows 7 machine, I have run a nmap scan just to show you how nmap scan looks like on this. And let me increase the font a little bit, and you can see that three ports are open. One is 135, second is 139, third is 445. So we will start MSF console. If I can type correctly, third time is a charm. Okay. So now we have started MSF console. The IP address for our Windows 7 target is 192.168.75.135. As we saw in our last session, we can see that I have two interfaces that we named as ETH0 and ETH1. And one is allowing us to go out to internet and the other one is host only network, which we are using for running our virtual machines where we will have vulnerabilities in those virtual machines, right? So those virtual machines will be in host only network so that we are running a safe lab environment and we do not have to worry about machine being vulnerable. So as we saw, we can quickly see that as we start MSF console, it shows a nice ASCII art. It also shows the tips. And just in case you want to see more tips, you can just type tips and it will show few more tips that will help you to understand some of the more features of MSF console or Metasploit framework. Now, first we will begin with scanning of the VM of our target. So for this, what we need to use is basically a auxiliary module. Now, there are multiple type of modules in Metasploit as you can see in the startup of the Metasploit as well. There are exploits, auxiliaries, post, payload, encoders, no-ops, and evasion. We will start with others later, but first we want to look at auxiliary. So if you want to look at auxiliary and let's say that we want to do a TCP scan. So we will just search TCP and here we can see the various modules which have the name TCP in their name. Okay. And we are basically looking for auxiliary, right? Now, if we look at search help itself, then we can see how we can use search more in a better way. So if you see earlier when we search for TCP, we have got 1253 responses, a lot of which is because the description contained TCP or the payload name contained TCP. And since there are a lot of payloads in Metasploit, there are lot of payloads that you would see when you search for things like TCP or reverse or shell or things of that sort, right? So we want to make sure that we are only looking at the auxiliary modules because that's what we are currently interested in. We'll talk about what is a payload, what is exploit, and so on and so forth. But auxiliary modules are everything that you want to run for before exploitation generally, right? You want to gather some information or you want to get the version of something. So all your recon and scanning and port scanning and all kind of things will come into this. So auxiliary is the module type that we want to search, and then we will search for TCP. And as you can see now, we are only seeing the results for auxiliary modules, and the results are more or less manageable, right? Uh, Now, the first thing that we want to do is basically a port scan. So for port scan, we can see that there are two auxiliary modules for port scan. Uh, as you can see in auxiliary, first you have auxiliary, then you have the scanner, and then the type that you want to do the scan for, and finally the type of the port scan that you want to run. So there is a ACK scan, there is a TCP scan, and so on and so forth. There is a XMS scan, right? You are already aware of these things. If you have used Nmap, if you have not, then probably we will have a session on that separately later. But for now, we will not go into what are these different type of scans because we are looking at MSF console and how to use it. So let's try to do a auxiliary scan, port scan, TCP. We know that this is 38, so I can just say use 38, and immediately I can see that I am in the specific module, which is auxiliary scanner port scan TCP. And as you can see, you can actually see the whole module name here also, which tells you that now you are not in the MSF6 console CLI console/CLI prompt only. Now you are in a specific module, and if you just do a info, then you can see the info about this specific module that you are inside. Now, if you want to go back, you can just say back, and you will go back to the original uh, prompt, and you are not in the module anymore. Now, let's do this search again. Okay. Now, before you start using a module, let's say you wanted to know about what the port scan TCP is, then you can also do a info and the number that is shown against this, right? Or the full name. Either one of those will use when you are trying to do a info or when you are trying to use, as it mentions in this tip here also after the search. So if I do a info 38, I can see that the module name is TCP port scanner. It has a Metasploit framework license, and it is provided by HDM and Chris Catterjohn. There are few parameters that you want to set before the scan starts, and it also gives you the description of what this module does. So let's use this module. Use 38. Use 38. Now, once you are inside the module, first thing you want to do is check the options. If you already know what the options are, then it's fine. But generally, you always want to check the options. Uh, if you don't know anything about the module, then you will first, of course, want to check the info and see what this module does and do you want to use this module or not. But once you have decided that you want to use the module, you will first go into the module and by using command use as we have done just now, and then after that the number in the search, or if you already know the name, then you can also give the full name. And because without search the number is not there in the context, right? Once inside the module, you would like to run the command options. This shows you all the parameters that you can show for this module. For example, here we can use concurrency, which is the number of concurrent ports to check per host. If you want to quickly run through a 65535 ports, then probably you would want to set this to a very high number so that your scan completes faster. But if you set it to higher number, then there is also a chance that some of the IDS or IPS will get triggered and you will not be able to go under the radar. So if you are doing a red teaming, probably you would want to keep concurrency as low as possible. Again, if you make it 1, then 65535 ports, if you are scanning, which is all the range of the ports, it might take a long time. And you might not have that amount of a time, right? So you have to make a decision judiciously on how much concurrency you want to set. Delay is the delay between connections per thread in milliseconds. Jitter is a jitter factor, which is a small amount of delay between the two consecutive messages. This this basically enables you to ensure that every message is not at the exact delay seconds that you have mentioned above. So if I have set delay as 5 seconds, let's say, then if I am sending every message after 5 seconds from my Kali machine, then this becomes susceptible and a lot of triggers might start ringing the bells. Adding a small bit of delay will basically avoid that situation. Which ports to scan? By default, it is set to 1 to 1000. I don't want to go to that level. That will probably take a lot of time, so I will just say set ports to 1 to 100, or let's say 200. Because we know two ports are open in 139. One port is open 130. Two ports, 135 and 139, right? So we can set it to 200 so that we can see those two ports open. And when you want to set any parameter, you can use the set command. It will set this, and if you run options again, you can see the changed values. Next, we want to set the R host. R host is the remote host, and it can use it in. You can give this in multiple ways. R host is plural, which meaning that you can scan multiple hosts at the same time. But if in it option it says R host without S, then it's a singular verb, right? Which means that you can only run the module on a single host. Since this is the module that we are using for scanning, this can run on multiple hosts at the same time, and you can use various notations to add multiple hosts at the same time. For the time being, we are only running one, so I will say set our host, and then we will copy the IP address of our machine and just change the 136 to 135. Now, another thing when you are in Metasploit CLI is to remember is that you can always use tab, right? So if I say is set R and tab, you can see that it was automatically completed to R host. If there are ambiguous variables, then it will not complete them. I can show you with T probably because threads timeout both start with T. So if I give T and then tab, then it will not complete it because it has multiple options that it can complete and it doesn't know which one to complete. Once you have given sufficient input to complete it without any ambiguity, it will complete uh, the complete variable name. So now again, if we check our options, we can see that we have set the ports from 1 to 200 and we have also set the our host. Another important thing when you are looking at options is there might be a lot of options for a module, but a lot of them might not be required. And what required means is these are mandatory parameters. So if the required column says yes, then you have to set this parameter before you run this module. I can again show you an example by doing a unset. unset is the reverse of set. So once you have set something and then you want to unset this variable, then you can do a unset delay. So once I do a unset delay, uh, it will unset the variable, but it has a default value. So you can still see that the default value will remain there. And we can verify that by again running options. But if I unset our host, then you can see that my keyboard is behaving a little weird. Yeah, so uh, when you unset our host, you can see that the value that we have set is gone now. But this is a required parameter. So now if you want to run this, any module that when you have configured completely and all the required parameters you have set, you can run it with run or exploit. Generally, I use run for auxiliary modules, and for all my exploits, I use exploit uh, that basically syncs with what I am doing, right? So that's how I use them, but you can use them interchangeably. So if I try to run it now, it will say that it wanted a required parameter R host, but that has not been set, so it cannot run this specific module. Now we know that in the history we have set R host, so we can just say control and R together, and you will get into this reverse I search, which is basically your reverse history search. And you can type a part of the command that you are looking for. And here I am looking for set, right? So I can just say set. But as you can see, I am still getting unset R host, which is not what I want. So I can press Control R again, and it will show me the next uh, history command that I have used with set. And somehow my keyboard is still not working correctly. Okay, it was not updating it. But as you can see that when I say set, it is searching for the last command that I have run on the console, right? So now we have set the options. We have set the option. All the options are set, so I can now do a run, and I can immediately see that it tells me that port 135 is open and port 139 is open. So that's how you can use a basic module and Metasploit. I will also show you one quick example. Probably you might not understand what we are doing here, but that's okay. I just want to show you how to actually use an exploit. Since this is a Windows box, there are a lot of exploit which works here, but I will show you one that is on Net API. So if I search for this Net API, you will see that there is MS086067 MS08067 Net API. And as I explained last time, when you are doing the search in the latest version, that is MSF6, they have recently added the added feature that if a module supports more than one target, it will show you all the targets here so that you don't have to first select and then set the target. You can directly select the target as well when you are selecting the module. So we are looking for selecting MS08067 Net API. This is the module I want, and I want the target to be automatic targeting. I don't want to specifically set a target because if the module can automatically anyway detect it, why should I care, right? So I want the automatic targeting one, which is 13. So I will just say use 13. Okay. Now If you had seen when I was doing a set for our host, I had used set G and not just set. What set G means is set globally. Now, when you set something globally, even if you change the module, the value is set, and hence now, although I have changed my module to MS08067 net API, you can still see that our host is set to set correctly, and that's all I wanted, right? Now, when you are running an exploit like this, which will give us back a shell, or I can execute some command on the remote host, basically RCE, right? Then I need to select a payload. The payload will be what is actually executed when the vulnerability is exploited. I'll not go into details of what is an exploit, what is a vulnerability, what is a payload. You should already know this if you are learning MSF console. If you don't, then I would suggest you first learn about those things and then come back and we'll revisit this video. Uh, but that apart, now we have selected exploit which works on Windows 7. We know that it works on Windows 7. We have set our host by using setg earlier, and my our host is correct. Our port is 445. We know that this is open because we have already run nmap earlier and we saw that port 445 is open. And another thing that you may want to check is when you look at the exploits, it will also tell you whether what is the rank, what is the disclosure date, and whether it has a check option or not. I will talk about check option in a few seconds, but the rank will tell you how good or bad the exploit is. For example, the net API that we are selecting is a great exploit, which means that most of the time it will work and it will not cause any issues and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, what check means is that I can just say check here once I have gone into the module and set all the variables, and it will try to verify whether the target is vulnerable or not. This will be mostly correct, but sometimes it can be incorrect also. Although it says that the target is vulnerable, sometimes it might not be. But this check is a quick way to verify whether it is a vulnerable target or not. And this is very useful when you are doing a pen testing on a very high value target and you do not want to execute exploit because it might be unstable exploit and you don't know whether the system might go off service or not, right? In that case, you might want to just run a check uh, to verify whether it is vulnerable or not. And then if it says it is vulnerable, then you want to just report it to the client and say that it is vulnerable and let them fix it rather than trying to exploit it. If the target is a high value target and the customer doesn't want it to be down. Well, that said, now we can use either run or exploit. As I said earlier. Now since this is exploit, I prefer to use exploit, and I can just say exploit. And once I do that, it will do its magic, and I get a shell, and I can do ipconfig. You know that ipconfig is a Windows command, so in Linux it will not work, and we can see that the IPv4 address is the IP address that we had set in our host, right? 75.135. And we can do a cd slash, probably one more. Okay. And we can do a ls, and you can see that I have the Windows file system here. Don't worry about what we are doing here right now. I just wanted to show you how easy it is to exploit a system if there is a Metasploit module, if there is a Metasploit module already existing for it, and if there is an exploit already available in Metasploit. So that's the basics of Metasploit that I wanted to cover for today. Uh, Thank you.